Hey, it's Dave. Welcome back to my channel. So last night was really cool. We had a lot of people come on for the live chat and wasn't really planned. And I will set a time. And it's just so hard with my schedule when I get time allotted out to do that. A lot of great points were brought up during that and discussions that we were talking about. Something that always comes up is my video on Tonewood. And we talk about Tonewood a lot on my channel, mainly because it is a real bone of contention with me because basically a lot of manufacturers are selling you what's called snake oil. They are no more than a carnival barker in the Wild West telling you that here's the fountain of youth and here's what you need. And it's gotten so involved into it that people actually like to change the science or argue or say it they have the science or argue against the science that I produce to show you. And it's not difficult. And so I want to try to explain a little bit of it again because a lot of people are going to stop watching this video right away because they hear the fact that I don't believe that Tonewood affects the sound of an electric guitar, and they don't want to hear that or hear why because they just think that like I'm poo-pooing on their dream of wanting that to be true. They come up with some crazy notions and don't understand what a constant is. And so I'm going to show you something that I hope will try to make you understand without being preachy, I guess. So, like, right here, this is a G&L guitar made in Indonesia by Samick, as I've discussed a few times now. Okay. Now, ash body, maple neck. Oh yeah, if it had a rosewood fingerboard, it would really add to the warmth of the guitar. No, it wouldn't do anything. It would do something as you sit here and play it acoustically because you can hear the reflection, or if you're sitting in your bedroom, then that would matter. If you take this thing on a stage with a live band, you are not going to hear that warmth. What comes out of your amp is the exact same. Now, you might be asking me, well, why? Well, let's just say I had 4 of these in a row. Each one was different. So this one has ash with maple. We'll have an alder with rosewood. We'll do a, let's see, what's the softest? Well, ash would be the softest. What's the hardest? We'll do a maple body with an ebony fingerboard. That should be really bright. I mean, acoustically it will be bright, but not when you plug it in. And we'll say we have a solid rosewood guitar. Now, we can all agree that if I picked up each one of these guitars and played them, they would all sound different. Just as you would if you were to go to a guitar shop and pick up some acoustic guitars and play, let's say, 2 Martins. You pick up a D18 and you pick up a D28. Those that don't know, the D28 is a rosewood back and sides, solid. I mean, I hate saying solid because it's all, in that type of guitar, it's all solid, but solid rosewood back and sides with a spruce top. The D18 is going to have solid mahogany back and sides with a spruce top. The guitars are going to sound remarkably different. Now, why is that? That is because the guitar's sound is the resonance from the woods. So it's not just the wood that's affecting the tone. It's whatever bracing style they decide to use. Every aspect of the guitar that affects the way that guitar vibrates is going to affect the sound because the resonance or the way the guitar vibrates is what you are hearing. So all those guitars would sound different if we're listening to the forced resonance. Now, I'm going to post the arguments in this video that people argue with me, and that's fine because I've been told I'm an idiot when it comes to science, and But then they really don't come back to me scientifically. They come back with a lot of jargon, which I find to be hilarious, of the cancellation of frequencies. But they don't seem to understand something, and I'm going to explain that. That if you look up what makes up the frequency of a vibrating string, there are three variables. There is the tension, the scale length, and the mass of the string, and mass being what the material is and how much of it is there. So mass kind of has a few properties to it that you should know. So obviously a 42 pure nickel string and a 42 gauge pure steel string are going to sound different because the mass is different. They're a different material. Whereas a 42 nickel and a 46 nickel will have a different sound as well. How much of a different sound? Not much. Not much at all. Between the two materials, more of a difference. But when a string vibrates, such as this, the string will vibrate, just like on an acoustic guitar. Now, what's touching the body and what's touching this is not canceling out any frequencies that's going back to the string. The string is always going to vibrate at a constant. It cannot be affected by an outside source. So, yes, you are hearing cancellation of frequencies in the wood because the wood cannot perfectly reflect what a nickel steel string is doing. So we hear this, and the body is now resonating that sound. If I cut this body with an axe right here, or the saw, and would it change the sound? Yes, it will change what we hear when I do this. But the string is going to vibrate the exact same way every time. Every time it's going to vibrate the same way. Yes, different frequencies are being canceled out when I cut this thing. It does not cancel out and go back to the string because the string, when something is vibrating back to the string is going to vibrate how it vibrates. It does not take what you say. The string is not a microphone. It does not take what frequencies you're sending it and spew it out. It takes what frequencies you're spewing and sends it to A, and like if it's A, it's 440, if it's a 440 frequency. That's the frequency that's going to come out. If you're throwing a vibration of 330 at it, and that A vibrates, it's going to vibrate at 440. That's the part people have a hard time understanding. That no matter what you throw at it, the string is going to vibrate back to you what the string vibrates. That's the laws of physics. It cannot vibrate at a tone or a frequency and it doesn't cancel out frequencies. If I hit it with a pick, the attack is going to give that a sound, and the second that attack goes away, we're back to the string vibrating at the natural frequency. So yes, you can hear the attack. Now if I put a compressor on, you're not going to hear the attack, whether it's a thumb. And that's a lot of Nashville guys use a thumb pick and then finger pick. And you can't hear which is which. They all sound the same. They use a little compression and all that. So what happens is no matter what, the strings are vibrating the same way. Now the pickups, and this is another argument people will give to me. The pickups are in the body, and the body's vibrating, and that affects the pickup. What? No. This might be vibrating, at a micro level, but it doesn't change the field of magnetism. The field of magnetism then would be a constant, as I can hold a pickup in my hand and hold it to a vibrating string, and it's going to come out of an amplifier. The same. It doesn't matter if I shake my hand. It's not going to change the sound. And you can try that at home if you want. It will not change the sound unless you're moving it up and down. So the only thing that really matters on the guitar is you have a few variables, and let's discuss them because this really what makes guitars different in tone. We have the scale length, which is, for those that don't know, the length from the nut to the saddles. Now here we can see that the saddles are all at a different distance. That's because this scale guitar is about 25 and a half, and this string probably is set as close to 25 and a half than the rest of them. What happens is the B's a little thicker, so therefore the ends it doesn't vibrate out to the ends, so you have to elongate the scale length. And that's why this is further away. And the G string also. What happens with the fourth string is now we're back into a wound string, and so therefore the actual core of the string is thin again and vibrates closer to the edges, and so now this one comes forward again, and then back and further back because they get thicker. That is what is important, is scale length, number one, is going to determine your tone. The next thing that's going to determine your tone is your pickups and your electronics. What pickups are you using? What are they going into for electronics before it hits your output jack? These are all things that factor into the tone of the instrument. And lastly, and probably the most important, where is the pickup in relation to the scale on the string? Because that's your sound. This is why this pickup and this pickup, especially on a Strat where they're the same pickup, have such different sounds. Now, in the original Strats, they were using as much as they could the same resistance, and of course they put a little bit of a hotter pickup in the bridge, and that's just because the string vibrates less towards the end, and therefore you're going to need a little bit of help to push that sound a little harder. Whereas here, the volume's really loud. This is why, if you have a Strat that has a humbucker and you play a Les Paul with a humbucker, that they're not identical. And they're not identical because the Gibson is using a shorter scale, 24 3/4, and a Strat is using 25 and a half. That's why the scale length then matters. That's what PRS uses, a 25-inch scale. So they're already coming up with a different sound because it's between the Fender and Gibson sound, and then you can put whatever pickup you want and just make sure you place it somewhere. Now here, on the Fender style guitars, the neck pickup usually sits at the 24th fret where it would be, where that harmonic would be. That's usually right where it is, and that's kind of what people consider to be the sweet spot tonally. I happen to agree with it. On a 24 fret neck, you can't have a pickup there because the 24th fret is there, and so the 24th fret on the neck pickup never sounds as nice as a 22 fret on the and that's just my opinion. Some people will say they can't hear a difference, and touche to them, they might be right. But the idea was that it's on the 24th fret on that over that harmonic. So for the most part, this is why the woods don't matter. So you can't come back to me in these arguments that I see on my videos, and they're like, oh, but the cancellation of frequencies. As soon as I hear that, I'm like, you don't understand the vibrating string. Yes, the resonance, the cancellation will be in the wood. But the wood then vibrating and going back to the string, it just acts as whatever it would act to vibrate the string. But the string's vibration is a constant. It does not care what frequency you're using to vibrate it or what's vibrating it. And to tell you the truth, if I go like this and I'm playing, I'm not even giving a chance for the wood to vibrate to even matter to affect the tone. The only way I'm affecting the tone of letting the wood vibrate is I'd have to pick it real soft and hold it for 5-10 seconds, which how often is that? That doesn't. If that's what you're claiming, that's the tone of the instrument, well then good luck to you. Keep buying the snake oil. It's like step right up. It reminds me of whatever that Twilight Zone episode is where the guy claims he's going to bring back the dead of the town and nobody wants them to come back. That is why an electric guitar does not matter what woods are connected to it. It doesn't matter that these are brass saddles, because anyone that knows about the vibrating string and the frequency of it knows this is the node of it's the node of the sound wave, which is an amplitude of 0. It has no effect on how the string vibrates. Now, does it affect sustain? Because this is the argument that people love to hear, and And this is basically, it's all preference, and I'm going to explain why. So I enjoy a bone nut, which I don't believe this is. This is probably plastic. And I enjoy brass saddles, and I love when I hit a note, I love the guitar to vibrate in my hand. Nothing feels better. It's great when the guitar is vibrating and everything is locked in tight and the neck pocket's tight and everything else. But I also know that it has no bearing on the sound coming out of my amplifier. So when people sit there and say, oh man, I reseated my neck and got it really in tight and now it comes out of my amp and it sounds fantastic. Bullshit. It wouldn't affect the sound. It has no effect on the sound, because if that affected the sound, then you tell me you can tell the difference between a bolt-on and a glued neck, and you can't. It's nuts, and it's insane. But the point of the matter is, I like the way it feels, and everyone likes the way it feels, but it does not translate to what comes out of the amplifier. In fact, like I said, very little to do with the construction of the instrument has to do with what comes out of the amplifier. Now, some of you are already shaking your head because you're like, oh no, if there's not enough downward pressure. Yes. Assuming that you have no downward pressure here and the downward pressure is not correct by the bridge, the guitar will not sustain or sound right because the string isn't vibrating properly. Yes, there are those technical aspects where you should have an instrument that's well made, where you have enough. See, like on a Strat, there isn't really, or this is a G&L, but Strat style, where there's no tilt back on the headstock. You have the strings coming into that effect of you need to come up with some downward pressure. So now they make tuners where the posts are shorter as you go here, so the downward pressure comes down. And of course, you'll see the common string tree, and the string tree is for the high strings to put the proper downward pressure on them. And that downward pressure is so the string rings properly. But once you're ringing properly, whether this is plastic, bone, brass, Graphtec, what do they call that, Tusk, it doesn't matter. It will not affect the way the guitar sounds coming out of the amplifier. In fact, I believe Gibson has used even nylon. It just doesn't matter. What matters is, again, your pickups, where they are along the scale length, your scale length, and your strings. That's basically it. So if you want to argue in my comments, I would love when people argue scientific data. But if you're going to ignore the laws of physics of a vibrating string, don't bother. Because it's silly. It's a silly notion. And also, these are pickups. These are not microphones. These are pickups. They are just meant to read the vibrating magnetic field of the string. If you don't believe me, string your guitar with nylon strings and tell me how wonderful the wood sounds. Anyways, that's all I wanted to say on that, because people have been just commenting and I wanted to just set the record straight. But I do appreciate the arguments, and if somebody wants to argue something scientific with me, and not just sit there and write back Newton's law, which won't have any relevance in a vibrating string, by all means, write Newton's law down there and show everybody how you can copy something off of Google. But for the most part, do the test yourself. I'll even, in my videos, go back and watch my Steely Dan video where I'm playing all the Steely Dan songs, and tell me which neck I'm using has stainless frets. Tell me what, you can even see the guitars. You can't, and it's absolutely insane to tell me you can hear the woods. It's just, it will not happen. And it's funny, because if you go, there's an article about paint, and there's a guy from Fender, one of the custom shop builders, arguing that at 100 watts on a stage in front of an arena, you can't tell the difference between a polyurethane and nitrocellulose, and that the whole idea is ridiculous. And it's just an interesting article about a guy arguing about paint, because the nitrocellulose, before they paint it, was dipped in homoclad or Fullaplast, which is basically like plastic filler. It's probably worse than the polyurethane finish itself as far as making the wood vibrate. But listen, if you're looking to find a guitar that has beautiful vibration and sounds great acoustically, go buy a Collings. They're acoustic guitars and they're fantastic. Or a Santa Cruz. But if you're looking to play an electric guitar and
because they know all they sold you was a guaranteed piece of shit. That's all it is, isn't it? Hey, if you want me to take a dump in a box and mark it guaranteed, I will. I got spare time. But for now, for your customer's sake, for your daughter's sake, you might want to think about buying a quality product from me.
Don't worry about the snake oil business of Tonewood and the silliness of it. And basically just go out there, find an affordable instrument like this. Like, I have no idea what this piece of wood is. I'm assuming it's ash, but this thing's made in Indonesia. This thing could be, a petrified human body that somebody put a photo flame on it, or a photo of this wood on underneath the finish. I have no idea. Personally, I don't care. It sounds great. It plays great through my amplifier. And that's all I care about. Even though most of the time when I'm practicing, I don't really practice with an amplifier. I'm always just playing it acoustically, but I don't even care because any sound that I'm hearing is getting in the way of me trying to watch Match Game. Giddy up. Anyways, lots of things going on. NAMM is this week. I know a lot of people are excited about NAMM. I'm going to have a post-NAMM podcast with John, who I do my podcast with on Mondays. I believe SHOT Show was this weekend, and hence I'm supporting with my Glock shirt. I have my Glock 43 over here. I'll do another video where I show that. That is all. I want to thank everybody for their support. I'm also going to be doing a podcast live feed with Walter sometime in February. And other than that, I am going to be bringing guests onto the podcast with John and I. So lots of cool things coming up for 2019. And I just want to thank everybody for supporting my channel and visiting my Patreon page. And as always, very good.
Johnny, some kids on the show yesterday mentioned a new kind of music, ska. You know anything about it?
How should I know? Nothing but a modern offshoot of reggae. Updated white rock influences. Definitely upbeat. But never become really popular because even though they've made the backbeat more conventional, it's still too exotic for mass acceptance.